Hey everyone, my name is Julianne, and me and my partner Cam are going to go over the 5 models of addiction today. To begin, there are 5 separate models. First, there's the psychological model. Then, there's the moral model. Then, the biological model, the sociocultural model, and finally, the biopsychosocial model. So you may be asking yourself, why are these models important? Well, these 5 models help psychologists understand how substance addictions happen within the individual, as well as it helps them create treatment plans to help these individuals recover from their addictions. This is Jim. We will be using him as our example for today. Jim has a substance abuse problem and is addicted to heroin. This is Barbara. She's a psychologist who specializes in substance addictions and is also Jim's therapist. She's going to help Jim, but how? It all depends on how she looks at it. First, we're going to start with the psychological model. This model focuses on a lack of coping skills within the individual. It also focuses on attitudes and perception that the individual already has, as well as their personality and their temperament. In this model, we focus on Jim's lack of coping skills and how this led to his addiction. For example, imagine Jim loses his job. It was in no way his fault, but he's still out of a job. So he's stressed, understandably, but has difficulty coping with this stress. Instead of working through his frustration and sadness in a healthy way, like using his family or exercise, he turns to drugs. So, as his therapist, the goal is to improve his coping skills so that drugs no longer become the only choice and he can rely on those coping skills to deal with his stress. The moral model believes addiction is caused by a lack of willpower. It focuses on something being morally wrong or broken within the individual. Also, it believes that the problem is at the fault of the individual, and they're the reason why they're in the situation they're in. For example, none of Jim's friends are addicted to heroin even though they've tried it. So, there must be something morally broken within Jim, as all of his friends tried it and didn't get addicted, but he did. As his therapist, you would recommend that he strengthen his religious involvement. This will help reduce him from sinning in the future. So, according to this model, if Jim goes to church, he will eventually no longer be addicted to heroin and will be free of his sins.
Next up is the biological model. This model looks at addiction as a disease of the brain. It understands that the reward pathway is hijacked in the brain and that the addict is not fully responsible for the addiction. Let's compare Jim's brain with a normal brain. Let's say both Jim and a non-addict eat a slice of chocolate cake. The normal brain is going to look like this because the reward pathway in their brain lights up, releases dopamine, and they feel good as a result. However, Jim's brain is going to look like this. Why? Because his brain is now numb to everyday pleasures. Jim's brain has become used to extreme amounts of dopamine released by the drug. Because of this, he no longer gets pleasure from everyday activities. As well, he has to turn to the drug in order to just not feel miserable. In order to treat Jim's heroin addiction, Barbara could prescribe methadone. Methadone is a slow-acting opioid agonist. It works on the same brain areas as heroin, but a lot slower as it is ingested orally. This prevents withdrawal.